Okay, everybody, let's start again. Our next presentation is from Joris Dirks. Joris is a direct colleague of mine, but he is also very active in the Dutch government sector. Well, he will introduce himself. His story is about federated approach of government standards and architecture. So, Joris, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. Oh, there's my camera. And good morning to the people in the room, especially. So it's a mouthful, but I'm going to break it down for you in a few easy steps, or complicated. I'm going to talk with you about the landscape of where I'm operating, what enterprise architecture is about, what open standards are about in the Netherlands in the government perspective, what content will be in the wiki and will be in linked data, what things are we talking about, what even is the use case, why are we doing what we're doing, and also what we're doing, and then something about the regular way to publish linked data in MediaWiki and what we're building right now in Semantic MediaWiki and with a triple store to improve this, and a bit about the process. So the landscape. The running joke with my contractors is with my projects is that I have many hats on, and one of those hats is now with the standardization forum. The standardization forum is, broadly speaking, responsible for helping governments in the Netherlands and public sector open interoperability between government organizations. The other hat is on behalf of the NORA. NORA is the Dutch government architecture or reference architecture for the whole public sector, and they are closely aligned, as in a reference architecture is about in policies, principles, guidelines, examples on how you should do your information processes and information systems in government. And we have also sectoral architectures. The Netherlands is a decentralized state, which means that we have a central government, we have provinces, we have municipalities, and all of them have their own collaborations and sector architectures. Even with the semi-public sector, in education, we have all these governance and agreements. So it's quite convoluted. You see a tree that we made within NORA on who's all involved in the architecture landscape. By the way, about enterprise architecture, I'm not going to tell you a whole lot, but feel free to ask later, because RGXL is on one hand involved with knowledge management, on the other hand we're just consultants in enterprise architecture. So NORA, this is NORA online. It's a wiki, no surprise there. Purposely as basic as possible in form of skinning, so it's recognizably related to Wikipedia, etc. But there are principles and stuff. Then the standardization forum, in Dutch Forum Standaardisatie. They have a bureau, which is from another government organization than the NORA organization is, but close to each other physically. Not that it matters with working from home, but still we know how to find each other. And their structure is basically, there's a standardization with people directly appointed by the ministry, and they advise on a list of standards. And there's a whole formal procedure on getting standards approved for this list. So a standard for adoption on this list. There's then an expert review, there's a public review, and then the forum decides on it, and then another body within the government decides formally that they approve of this, and every government should adopt the standards on this list. With varying degrees, we have mandatory comply or explain standards on this list, and there are also advised or recommended standards on the list. And standards is deemed to be widely adopted. It can also just be removed from this list because there's no need for stimulus, or maybe the standard has been replaced by another standard in practice, and it can also be removed from this list. So this list I'm talking about, by the way, this is a Drupal website. It's a nice looking website. It's a long list. And as you can see, fairly little information here, but if I click on one of them, we can get a whole lot of information about it. And what's added as information here, basically metadata about this standard, or sometimes it's a group of standards. It has been growing over the years. So for the past years, a few years, new fields have been added. People come and go, and as it goes with many of the examples we've heard today, yesterday, and the day before, it's really important to be strict about what you fill in each field. So data hygiene is one of the challenges here. And another thing is we want these to be adopted and used in different contexts. And as I said, it's a whole landscape. We want those standards to be viewed in the context of NORA, so the reference architecture, and also in all the sectors that have their own policies and nuances and special flavors of architecture and IT policy. So this is what we're making. I'm going to talk briefly about Smart Core, what we have as RTXL, for those of you who don't know or have forgotten about it. But on top of MediaWiki, Semantic MediaWiki, we have Smart Core. It helps you with your knowledge model. And then in the NORA online wiki, we have the NORA knowledge model and the NORA contents, and in a separate namespace, we currently already have a knowledge model and the content from the standardization forum. We're currently moving the information from that website to MediaWiki, which is, well, as you've experienced in other situations, it's scraping the website, it's using available exports, and it's talking with the client about improving the data, just basically data quality improvements. What we're now building is some magic, which I'll talk about later, and then get everything into a virtuoso linked data storage and have it available for everyone. So the consumers, that will be the next step. It will be their own website, which will use the data from Semantic MediaWiki and the Triple Store instead of having to use Drupal and all the inflexibility or too much flexibility that you have there to store the data. So it will be a viewer per se, and you can use linked data viewers like Cosmos or whatever to view the data as well. And the consumers are free to choose. They could use Sparkle, they could use the linked data principles, but they can also use anything that MediaWiki can throw out. So a bit more on the use case. The consumers, those are NORA itself. They are sectoral architectures, and I'll also show software catalogs, which are also sectoral. This is the current setup. Currently, we have to basically manually add all the information that is on the website of the standardization forum, also in the NORA website or the wiki. from the Bureau of the Standardization Forum will use this as their record-keeping utility. And what we already have is using that information through simple templating in the NORA context. So if a standard is available in the namespace of the Standardization Forum, we can see this information here in the NORA context. Different layout, mostly the same fields. Sometimes we add some stuff because from an architectural standpoint, we need some extra information. You can see here, there's a little note that says part of this information comes from the Standardization Forum. And we enhance it with, for instance, here, which services in government, like the registry of persons, or Arjen Santema's Kadaster has services, which open standards are used there. So you can see more context about it. And as I said, other sectors, or rather specific sectors in the government, are also using it. This is SURF, the Higher Education IT Corporation. They'll kill me if I surmise it as that, but basically what they have is another wiki, and in this wiki they show all the standards that are about education, higher education. And here we see NLOM, which is also an open standard, which is on the list of the Standardization Forum. Right now, this is also manually updated. Like, they have their own board that decides on which standards are applicable in their sector. And they say, well, obviously, we take the nationally recognized standards and add to that. This could be enhanced with the data that comes from NORA, and NORA has the data from the Standardization Forum. Another example that we're currently working with is the software catalog. The software catalog is a product that we as RTXL are also involved with, and different sectors have a software catalog that shows, well, in this sector, this is the municipal sector, there are these functions that a, in this case, municipality should have, and what software packages are available for them. And each municipality can use this system to record what systems they are using. And their sectoral organization can record for them, well, this package claims to be compliant with this standard. As you see here is that there's a filter on standards. And if you click on one of those packages, you can see these standards are recognized here, and they can also, as a sector, validate those claims. So for some standards, there are compliancy tools, and they validate if those things are compliant. And once we can add our information with the unique identifiers here in the software catalogs, we can also get the information back. So on a national level, you can see, hey, according to the municipalities or the provinces, these packages and these software suppliers are able to support the standard. So you know more about the standard. So basically, that's one of the use cases we envisioned, or multiple of the use cases rather. But we purposely are building linked data and trying to get as many linked data principles incorporated here, so that future use cases that we haven't thought of yet can easily access this information. So a quick recap on SmartCore, or a product to basically have your knowledge model in your wiki. What you see here is a quick demo I created. This is not the real data. This is just a simple illustration of what it does. So I created two element types, which are basically classes in MediaWiki. Open standards and organizations can be added with several properties and relations between them. And if you go to one of those element types, you see information that you can expect from a class So a description, some information for what should be viewed in the form, and all the attributes that can be given to this element type. And we make a purpose distinction between relations and other properties. It's just a form. You can add it to edit the element type. And then if you create an element of that type, you get a default view unless you decide that you want a custom a template for it. So this is the way we enter information in Aura, and then we can export it. Well, Semantic MediaWiki already has a linked data option in the form of an RDF export, and it works great. You can automatically export all properties as RDF. Categories are included in the RDF. So basically all the information on the page, including some metadata that is quite Semantic MediaWiki specific, it all gets exported as an XML RDF by default. And you can import vocabularies, as you've seen in the workshop on Wednesday, which means that you can import vocabularies like SCOS or friend of a friend. And then the output is something like this. And this includes everything in the kitchen sink, which is nice, but it's not really easy to understand. And mostly it's platform specific. What we're now building is this. The format is different because it's Turtle, and Turtle is not XML, but it's a really condensed format. And also we're only exporting the fields that we want to have in our export. So it's agnostic. It does. You can't see if you don't want to, if we don't want to. That is from Semantic MediaWiki, because we want to publish it in a triple store, and maybe sometime in the future they want to be independent from Semantic MediaWiki and have it somewhere else. So that means it's a very clean output. We export in Turtle. We're also now experimenting with JSON linked data. We have no use case for it yet, but we could, so we did. We have support for custom resolvers. So the RDF URI is something, by default, it's just the page name within the context of the URL for your wiki with the resolver URI. But we can change that. And we can change that per page. So we purposefully just used one attribute in Semantic MediaWiki, literally the property RDF URI. And if you have set that, you can make the first part of your statement in linked data anything you want. We're working on custom prefixes. So if you want this to be really easy to read, you can skip all the SCOS lex and, for instance, SCOS tests if you don't use it, and you can use your own prefixes like FS for all the standards that are from the standardization forum. And one thing we're toying with is recursive exports, because say we improve the quality of this data on standards and we add a relationship to organization. We want our export not only to include all the standards, but also all the organizations that are responsible for maintaining those standards. So our current export looks at the dependencies and takes them with it in the export. So you see here in the example, we have CSV as an export or as a standard. And because it has a broader relationship to the W3C, the W3C is also exported with the attribute that is a organization, and it relates to, or it's the same as a certain ID in Wikidata. And most and foremost, there are several types of exports available. There's an automatic export button you might have seen in my example already. There's a export to turtle button. As soon as the wiki knows that there's basically a linked data equivalent for this page. So if we set the imported from attributes, we have a semantic result format right now. So instead of RDF in your export, you can choose the turtle export. And we're working on the publication mechanism to the linked data storage, in our case, Virtuoso. So every time you click the button, or your cron job runs daily, or whatever you set, the export gets run based on your parameters. We just have a category RDF publish, and then it gets imported in the linked data storage. All the current data gets removed, just like in Wikidata, and it gets replaced by the most current version. So yeah, that's the difference. And what we are looking for in the future is having this really linked with different data sets. Currently, we have to create the information in the namespace of the standardization forum. And when we have done that, we also have to create a page in, so an entity in Nora about this same standard. And we can add values to that, but we're working on what can we do to automate this, so you can see it in both realities. And then we want to be able to connect to Wikidata. So as you can see, we already linked CSV and W3C in the example to the Wikidata entity, but now we want to get the information from that into our context, and also we want to publish our knowledge about these standards to Wikidata. So that's on one hand an informational challenge, and organizational. What do we want to share? What is valuable in their context? We're working on how do we describe our knowledge in such a way that it's fitting in the context of Wikidata and fitting in the context of the consumers that we already envisioned. And also, it's a technical challenge. How do we make sure that we get data there? What data do we want from Wikidata and other sources into our context? And also, Nora is one of the few architectures in Dutch or reference architectures in the Netherlands in the public sector that is not yet using Archimate to describe their architecture. Most of them are using Archimate models and are modeling their architecture not in Semantic MediaWiki, but somewhere else. And Erwin is going to talk about the usage of Archimate in architecture in relation to linked data later on. But that's certainly a challenge, because how do we connect our reality in Semantic MediaWiki with your desktop application where you make the graphical models of your architecture? So we're still working on that. And also publishing this information to the consumers. You saw a big uniform blob. We have ideas about how to do that with the software catalogs. We're fairly certain it's trivial to do that with two other wikis. But one of the challenges is, funnily enough, their own website. So the standardization forum website still has to have a way to import the information that they now administer to Nora back into their website. So there are various options for that, but we have to look in what is manageable for them and how can we work with their website vendor on getting that done. And also, one of my gripes with linked data is that it's often done with a technology-first approach, and you can find the data in a linked data storage. You can do Sparkle queries, but more often than not, if you're really interested, you have to take a lot of time and effort to find out which queries to use, how the data is structured. So making it easy for the end user to find the data is one of my personal gripes or priorities. They already have a linked data storage for those standards. And well, I'm not that versed in linked data, I must admit. So it took me quite a while to at first just find the structure of their data, because it's not documented except for in the linked data. So having accessible viewers, having a good way of describing how the data is structured, what the practices are, that is as key as having the editors comply to a certain way of working. Yeah, and my personal idea hereby, or impression here, is that it's already difficult sometimes to find the right users in the organization to know and understand how Semantic MediaWiki works and the concepts of properties and element types. And with linked data, it's even more complex. So you have to find the right people in the organization, and you have to make you have to set the bar as low as possible for them by helping them with any tool you can. Well, I'm giving some more personal thoughts. What I experienced here is in Semantic MediaWiki, there's this way of importing your vocabularies with the MediaWiki semicolon SMW imported from, and then the name of, or the abbreviation rather, for the vocabulary. And basically the way of working is you have to find the vocabulary, get it in that structure, and put it into Semantic MediaWiki, and hope it won't be updated without you knowing, because you have to the vocabulary and paste the updated version there as well. Quick side note, in the semanticmediawiki.org page for schema.org, there was just one tiny space in one of the fields which broke our initial importer, because we didn't take into account that there was some variance there. So it would be excellent if we could find a way as a community to improve on that and have the vocabularies imported in a automated or more automated way into your wikis. We have our Smart Core that really helps some customers to make their own knowledge models, but in honesty, it's mostly for ourselves if we're working with a client to just get up and running with a knowledge model. And it saves us a lot of effort in creating templates, properties, and element types or classes. But I think the workflow that I now see is you have to create an element type and a property type, several property types, and then find which lexicon you're using, which vocabulary you're using in linked data. If you want to make it a good workflow for that, is still something that could be improved for the power user. And lastly, one of the gripes I came across, it was I created a property of the type external identifier, and I gave it an external identifier URI. Surprise, surprise! It was Wikidata, and it wasn't working as soon as I added the imported from property. And then it hit me, wait, imported from says it's same as is an OWL property of the type page. So it's not anymore an external identifier. So you can't use the automatic resolve at the same time as using a imported from vocabulary. So we have to find a way around that too. We did with templating, of course, but it's not the neatest solution. So those are the small experiences we already had with working on linked data in Semantic MediaWiki. That concludes what I have to tell you. So, are there any questions from the online audience?
Yes, there is one. Who are your customers and what are their cases?
I hope I explained that later after this question was posed. But yeah, I said I had many hats, and NORA, so the national overarching architecture is one. But honestly, most of the sectoral architectures are already using one of our wiki platforms and also using our knowledge model system. So it's really easy for us to find enthusiast customers. And we find our customers in the government meetings. So I recognize all the faces of people that either I or my colleagues work with. But really, we're also looking for customers of this data that I don't know of, that are customers for my clients and not for us, because both the providing and we're working on the consumer side, and it will be excellent to see more and more usage of this.
Thanks a lot for your talk, and you also talk about having UIs to create data models. So do you particularly look at object properties to relate different terms to each other? These that define the content of a class or the attributes, or both?
Yeah, all. And as I've shown in our smart core methodology, we distinctly separate the relationships from the other properties. Well, in Semantic MediaWiki, technically everything is a relation, and in linked data as well, just a relation to a text that is not an object in itself. So there's that. But in my opinion, in my experience rather, as with this case, if you just make a Drupal website, you don't think of, wait, the organization that's the maintainer of this standards, like W3C or ISO, is an object. So that realization often comes later, or if you are improving on the data that's provided to you, you come to that realization. And in my experience, it's obviously easy with both linked data and Semantic MediaWiki to
upgrade the data property later to object property.
Yeah.
So we have the same problem. So we want that so kind of users in science create their own data models, because there are endless data models for endless particular small scientific subjects. So they need to, because we cannot do for all of them. Yeah, and so the idea is that we have this graph view to edit the object properties, and maybe then pop-up forms to create data property schemes, for example, in an abstract way, and then fill it with data. Yeah, maybe we can find a link here.
Yes, and that's honestly one of the dilemmas we have, because SmartCore gives you a standard form of creating forms, and as soon as you have pop-ups or triples in the form of repeating templates, something that page forms can support, we have to abandon the default forms in SmartCore and create our own custom forms. We do that a lot with customers, and just we call it then rapid prototyping in creating the first form, and as soon as their demands outreach or surpass the options in SmartCore, we still have to make a new form, and it makes it harder to maintain. But yeah, that's always the dilemma.
Okay. And one point about your last statement here, that you cannot assign type page and type external identifier to the same property, or how do you mean it?
Yeah, like as soon as you say this is owl same as, so first you say this has type external identifier. You give the property a type of external identifier, and then you can say the identifier can be resolved by this string. So the value is Q1, and the external identifier is Wikidata / entities #1. It gets resolved into that URL. But then I say import it from owl same as, and in owl it says, well, same as has the property type page.
Yeah.
And then MediaWiki says, oh, so this is not an external identifier, this is a page, and the page Q1 does not exist in this wiki. So
yeah, but so if you regarding owl, you would say you try to achieve that a property is at the same time an object and a data property, because the external identifier is a data property, and a page is, and same as is an object property, and that's forbidden. But what is if you use this on this, if you use just yeah, how is it property called, equivalent URI, then it gets exported the same as, but you have to use it on the instances or on the classes, not on the property page.
that might be a really good solution. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for the solution.
Yeah. So as far as I've understood, you have implemented the Turtle and the JSON LD in a way of a result format.
Yes.
But which is great, and I hope to see that out sometime. But how do you? The problem is with JSON LD, Google wants you to have the JSON LD inside the source of the HTML page. So as a result format, it would not help you because it would have a link to JSON LD, which is nice, but Google wants you to have it in the source code. Do you have a mechanism for that?
Not at all.
Okay.
It seems feasible to create that as well, but we didn't think of that for Google yet. So
okay.
Good feature request.
Okay.
We're thinking about how to, if we can release this, if there's any dependencies on what we made, and what can be reused. So that would be really good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
No more questions for Joris? Okay, well then, Joris, thank you very much.
Thank you.